Hey everybody, welcome to 33. So we are master masons of the sinister, master
I like
sinister
that.
ministers.
I like that.
So yeah, welcome to number 33. Here we are. I've been saying to Craig all week, and I don't think there's any pressure on us. I'm pretty confident that this could be one of our best shows ever. Because Craig, I really think it plays into what we do best is kind
Mhm.
of riff on these big, important red flag issue warnings or
Yep. No.
warning issues.
Yeah. No. I liked it because that's what I said. I was happy that you liked the banner too, because that's what when you said you wanted to make sure that it wasn't. We didn't focus on the fact that it was a
Yeah,
compromise. That it wasn't that one sole focus. I'm like, but then just the two people I thought worked best for each name. Like I said, and that's what I put in. You liked it, so.
no question. And Klaus Schwab is looking a little confused and innocent. Total put on.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Total put on. So folks, we're just going to run the opening and get back and dive into this. Yes, because Kompromat and Dezinformatsiya, Russian names, but not just a Russian product. The Russians really get the credit. And Craig, I'll say, I was going to save it for later, but I'll say it for now. I was checking in with ChatGPT, and they had so much to say about Kompromat, so much to say about Information And I'm like,
Hmm.
give me American equivalents for, and they're like, oh, no. America has this justice system. It has very powerful congressional committees. So this kind of thing doesn't happen. So, folks,
Oh
ChatGTP
yeah.
is so biased and useless. But we will talk about that as part of the show. Welcome, strap in, because it's going to be a great one. I think we're all going to learn a little something. There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, the couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
We are definitely in the outer realms of reality with this stuff, right, brother?
Yes. Yes.
High art. So I've been practicing this all week. I only have to say it once. So Kompromat is a portmanteau, which is a mashup of two words. So here's a couple of examples: brunch, breakfast, and lunch, portmanteau, or motel, motor, hotel, motel. That's a portmanteau. In this case, it is Kompromatorustaya. How'd I do?
Nice. Better than I was going to do. So hey,
Which would be
rock on.
compromising and then just material, which is also material. So I guess it's material, comrade. I say material. So
right.
So that's compromat. So compromising material. It's all the really good juicy stuff that all the Amazon and Netflix, like a very British scandal, is basically compromat. Because let's face it, Craig, everybody's doing it. So when guys get caught doing it, male politicians, it's because they piss somebody off.
Yep.
And we'll talk about some examples.
And
Right?
hey, just to let you know, You're being live streamed on Three Beards podcast.
Whoa, that's
Yeah,
why. That's very cool. That's why I see some.
Yeah, I got that thing. So you were being streamed on our thing. So it's like I said, good evening to all of the Three Beardos.
How did you do that?
Yeah, I figured it was one of those things. Guests can stream to their own channels.
Right. And you made it work. I've had some guests try it and it didn't work. So
yeah, you just have to click the live.
Hello, Maria.
Yeah, so
Cool.
we're gonna have some new faces, hopefully.
All right, very cool, and I hope they'll come back to like what they hear. So, of course, these are things like personal scandals, financial impropriety, and illicit activities. Again, keeping in mind that anybody that reaches a certain level of power and position in any world government does all of these things. So when they get caught, it's something to pay attention to. Why? So we're gathering, we're weaponizing, compromising or damaging information to use against individuals or organizations for political, economic, or personal gain, otherwise known as blackmail.
Exactly.
So, again, this goes back, really, they're Russian words. And of course, in America, we point the finger at Russia. Craig, it thoroughly pissed me off in 2016 when they talked about Russian election meddling. Why? Not because it's okay. It's because the United States has meddled in every election, probably in history, since the country was founded, including our own elections.
Yeah.
Right? The hanging chads and so on and so forth. So that's why that's disgusting.
And kind of, and just like what you're saying right there, it wasn't that perfectly the way to sum it up, that they not only was that whole thing with the dossier and everything that came out, that was exactly what the whole point of the, right above my head here, that's the whole point of it, is just that to throw out this disinformation, to throw off this, because it's one of those, people say like, how would they? Why wouldn't you?
Right.
It doesn't cost you anything to sit here and throw chaos into it, just throw the wrench in the works, and then you just sit back and like, excellent.
It's called the Great Game, and they love it. And people like Ian Fleming and J.D. Salinger, these guys were all like insider, like intel guys, and they made a lot of money writing about it. So the guys like Sinclair, John LeClaire, and people like that have made a lot of money on this kind of stuff because people absolutely love it. So how do they get this stuff? This becomes really, really important, folks. We're doing sort of like meta micro here, because this applies to every single one of us when you get right down to it. Surveillance, hacking, bribery, most of us don't have to deal with that. Fabrication, we all run into that now. Of course, it's used to destabilize governments and institutions. You want to undermine public trust. Craig, public trust in U.S. institutions, the Supreme Court, the Office of the President, and Congress, rightfully so, are at an all-time low.
Oh, yeah.
It's concerning when like maybe 15% of the population say, I still trust the three branches of government.
Well, you can see when because each branch has meddled into things that they're not supposed to. The judicial is not supposed to write law. They're not supposed to dictate law. They're just supposed to simply say, Joey and Craig pass this law. Yeah. This doesn't meet the Constitution. They're not supposed to take world, precedent. They're not supposed to go through these things. It's supposed to be judged based off the founding document. And so you have the thing, when they've strayed away from that, that's the problem. And it's the same way Congress has let the executive branch just run crazy through regulations, through all this stuff, not even following their thing. So it's no wonder. And then, how that ties to like what we're talking about is when you bring in, when you can compromise the individuals in these institutions, Supreme Court justices, congressmen, senators, presidents, when you can actually start to affect these things to where you can steer this stuff, then you can start seeing where this isn't just some, cute little name, on a Wikipedia page, some movie that was made where like, oh yeah, it's like, no, this is a legitimate program that China, I mean, North Korea uses both of these very much so, especially with their neighbor.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a thought. We have 3 Supreme Court justices sitting. Well, no, one died under very mysterious circumstances. But we had Scalia, we have Brett Kavanaugh, and we have Clarence Thomas, all accused of sexual harassment, allowed to be let off, but that is always hanging over their heads.
Mhm.
That it could come back to get them. So their means of control. Now, you cannot do this kind of stuff without complicity of the media. So again, they talk about Russian state-run media. They talk about this third world country state-run media, China's state-run media. Got news for you. The United States media is state-run as well. Although it's really deep state-run.
Well, NPR. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah,
Public broadcast, the PBS channels and stuff. Everybody's like, no, that's independent. No, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on. I said, anybody that's smart knows that they're, when Uncle Sam says jump, they say how high. They do exactly what they're told to do. There's no, they're not independent in any way. I mean, it's just.
And the New York Times is a wicked shill.
Oh yeah, it's just, you have these ones where it's like people need to get past these things. So they're like. That's why I think I told you before, and I've always told people, it's like the best way to combat like the disinformation thing is to not just go to Drudge Report, not just go to Fox News, not go to CNN, Headline News, Bloomberg, but you want to go to all of them. And when you see the things where they cross, that's where, just like the thing when you want to find the center of something, put lines across, and wherever they cross over, you found your center point. Well, if you can find where everything kind of overlaps, that's where, like what we do on the show, you can start to find that's where you need to start. That's your middle ground. And then you can branch off from that.
Right. So I want to get a little specific, give you some examples of these that were foundational. So this is for those of you who are joining us on Sinister Mysteries for the first time, I call it anybody playing Sinister Mysteries bingo at home. So these are things that you could fact check us about or use them to build a foundation to do your own research. So that's why I try to include this. It's fairly minimal tonight. But in 1961 in the UK, John Profumo was a 46-year-old Secretary of State of War. So a very powerful guy under a conservative government that was holding on by a fairly thin thread. All of a sudden exposed through these programs as having an extramarital affair with a 19-year-old model named Christine Keeler, who was also involved with a Russian naval attaché officer. So that makes it all the worse. Profumo, Secretary of War for the UK, sleep with Christine Keeler, does pillow talk. We know JFK and RFK did that kind of thing. Then she goes and talks to a Russian naval officer. Well, when this got exposed, it toppled the conservative government. So pretty good job. Now, this is a good time because we're talking about the UK to say that Churchill and the UK during World War II were absolute masters of disinformation. Russia gets to credit under Stalin. So they're working in parallel paths. The United States was a little bit behind them until the CIA really, really got going. And then, of course, we have under Hoover, primarily in the FBI, we have COINTELPRO, or the Counterintelligence Program. Infiltration setups, false narratives. They destroyed the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers were given school lunches out, free breakfasts, rather, to African-American kids. And the FBI, through their disinformation campaigns, not only killing members of the Black Panthers, but shut down those school breakfast programs.
I know.
They were shut down. I mean, anytime kids are involved, right? MK Ultra, the LSD experiments. Oh, sprinkle this on your cereal as a nutritional
well, you can see,
program.
because during the time, you can see why, there was that's probably like where I said when the distress really kicked into gear. It went from just being, Uncle said, America, we're not doing anything, to people really, I think that's when the curtain started pulled back.
Yeah.
and people can start seeing some of the things behind. I mean, it's just,
Right.
it's like in several of our shows, we'll talk about that stuff. I mean, at some point, we might even talk about the Tuskegee,
Oh yeah.
experiments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have one for you. I'm going to trot it out here. Let us know what you think in the chat room, guys. I don't usually spring this stuff on Craig, but I came up with it. Craig, the mysterious rise and continued rise of Barack Obama.
Yeah.
I'd really like to tackle how an acorn organizer in Chicago becomes a first-term senator, delivers the Democratic National Convention speech, and then becomes president.
Well, that's
Right?
where that's where you get the Manchurian candidate. That's when you get a lot of people that were doing that claims
Oh
like
yeah.
this was meant, this is something that was meant to be, because it was just what are the odds that you could just go from being, like you said, just a normal community organizer in the Chicago area.
Yeah.
I mean, because that actually would be a really cool show, because a lot of people, I don't think they know just the dirty, underhanded move that he did to get the nomination to go into the Senate.
Right.
He actually, it was a betrayal of, a fellow Democrat party member, is how he even moved up the party. I mean, it just, and the Weather Underground, how he that's where he did his campaign kickoff.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty amazing. I mean, you can definitely tell he had connections.
Oh yeah, there's no question. And I want to move forward with this, but thanks to Frank Jacob and a recent show that he did with Gene Nolan, there was a clip. He was on like 60 Minutes or something like that, and they said, "Would you ever do a third term as president?" He said, "I've given this a lot of thought. If I can write the policy and I can write the words and speak them in someone's ear while I'm sitting in my basement in my sweatpants, it's happening, brother."
Yeah, no.
It's happening. So we're getting an overwhelming, do it. So we're gonna have to put that on the calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's one of those, and like for people that are, it has zero to do with supporting the R or the D, side. It just happens, it's simple facts. It's when you actually look in these things, it's like there was definitely, I mean, we can get, too sidetracked, but it's like when we get in, there's some different stuff that we can get, and you can see where, things are like just the mathematical odds that this could have occurred were astronomical.
Right.
And it just, it would be a fun show.
And I know what Tucker Carlson says about him. That's rabbit hole. We could touch on it if we want, but there's an ex-FBI guy named John something. And he says he's a foreign agent, and they knew it, and the FBI was trying to catch him in the early days, and they couldn't do it. Right. So I don't know about the birther stuff, the this, the that. But anyway, so, okay, great. So 72 Watergate scandal uses all of this kind of stuff, wiretapping, using compromising material against political opponents, silence people, threaten people. In 99, there was a video showing Russian politician oligarch Boris Berezovsky with two prostitutes to discredit him and destabilize his political influence. So, in Russia, they'll poison, that just happened. You had that very powerful, Craig, the very powerful mercenary leader. Like he dies like in a plane crash all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if they want to make them live and really, it depends on, I'm sure there's reasons. So 2011, Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi, again, corruption, sexual impropriety, underage prostitution, winds up resigning, destabilizes Italy, and moves the political parties around. This makes me think in the United States, Craig, Anthony Weiner, Andrew Cuomo, Bill Clinton, presidential candidate Gary Hart with Jennifer Flowers, Jennifer with a G. If everybody's doing it, why do only certain, right? Cuomo screwed up. He was getting so popular and so powerful during the lockdown that they had to cut the knees out of this fella.
Well, that's because that's one of those things. It's like you get to the point to where it's kind of Anthony Weiner. It's the same thing. You are useful to your point, and then once you start to get to the point to where you feel like you are no longer beholden to the handler, that's when stuff falls apart.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with him. And I would almost say that his wife was this was almost textbook of a hunt. It's not really. It'd be like the honey trap,
Mm.
Operation.
Right.
Yeah, because it was strictly around, compromising, and then once you had them, then you could move the pieces however you want.
Right. And in that whole Anthony Weiner world, John Podesta world, so on and so forth, we talked about this during Project Monarch. Ellen DeGeneres wearing the F-drip T-shirt, and then suddenly her career went kablooey. Suddenly she's a bully. She's harassing people on her set, and she's over. So 2011 in France, politician Dominique Strauss-Kahn, who was the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, pretty powerful dude, gets accused of sexual assault in New York City. The charges are dropped, but it ends his bid for the French presidency. So the damage is done. You don't have to go to jail. These guys don't go to jail, but they have to resign. They're out of the game, right,
Yep.
Craig? They're benched.
I mean, that's the success for it. I mean, they don't.
Yeah.
That was like through my research for this thing. There's not really, when you think of this game, it's like chess pieces. Russia's notorious for this thing where like their things are, it's throw bodies at it, just keep throwing stuff at it. They don't care about collateral damage.
Mm-mm.
They like when stuff happened between Obama, when you had the stuff with Trump, Clinton, when you had all this stuff, Russia didn't care either way. They honestly did not care who won.
Right.
What their whole point was to keep the great power US distracted in fighting. As long as we're fighting each other, they could care less. They could like right now, they could care less if Trump or Biden wins the next election. They just want what's going on right now. They want people literally fighting each other,
right,
yelling and screaming at each other over the stupidest things. And meanwhile, they can sit back and they're just like, it worked.
Yeah. Now I'm going to say yes, but to that, which I rarely say,
Yes.
because Maria, what I have up on the screen here, right? Agenda 15 got pushed back to 2030, and you were the one that alerted me to that. The whole Ukraine thing would have happened under Hillary.
Yep.
So they had to wait it out.
So it's had the timetables, yeah.
Yeah. So the timetable does get screwed sometime. Deep state, exactly. It's these people who are not elected people. The person who runs the EU right now, not an elected person, who claims to be the head of the EU. This woman with 3 names, I believe, a German woman. So good. Yes, we talked to death already about U.S. presidential election interference, hacked emails, all that kind of stuff. South Korea in 2017, their leader, I'm not even going to attempt to say his names. Then, of course, in 2019, this great game with Ukraine comes in, right? Zelensky, who suspended democracy, man. There's no democracy in Ukraine. Yet we're sending them weapons where our own stockpile is depleted to save democracy, and the guy suspended elections. But the allegations that Trump pressured Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, to use military aid as leverage. Well, now we have 2 wars. We have the border crisis. When was the last time anybody talked about Hunter Biden?
Yeah, well, that's how crazy.
The canceled checks.
It's everybody is just. It's kind of like everything that's going on. It's just like a whirlwind. It's like we keep throwing stuff at it. Yeah, and it's like when that. It's like, I mean, that's awesome. That's what I said. I have no problem. It's just it's like throw the points. That's the whole point of our show.
Yeah, we're trying to puzzle this out in somewhat real time. But using history, so okay, so let's move on to Dezinformatsiya. So easy to figure out: dissemination of false information with the intent to deceive, manipulate opinions, sow discord, right? The othering, keep everybody fighting. That goes back, Craig, to COINTELPRO Pro, where they realized, like, if you want to destroy the Students for a Democratic Society, infiltrate, put pressure. Suddenly you have splinter groups like Weather Underground and they're working against each other. It happened with the Black Panthers, so on and so forth. This is what I want to talk about really the rest of the night tonight, to maintain control and suppress dissent, because this is where this starts to hit very, very close to home for all of us. Utilization of media to propagate false narratives and ideologies, New York Times, so on and so forth. Really all the major news networks. Craig is right. I will go to Drudge, Craig, just to see what's popping in the news cycle. What's in red in the list, what's right at the top.
Yeah, because they're basically Drudge. For me, there is slant in some, to an aspect, but most of it is a news aggregate. It's just like their top headlines,
Yeah,
now
and
it's
major bought and sold news platforms, not alternative news at all. You'll quickly learn that if you guys go there, but it is a good tool for seeing what's popping, what's in the news cycle. Exploit social media platforms to spread disinformation and manipulate public perception. Of course, this week, the Supreme Court hearing the case and going, oh no, the Biden administration was fully within their rights to go to social media platforms and to get them to take down things that they didn't agree with. Because who sets that standard? Because just more and more is coming out, right? That what were supposedly false narratives, crackpot conspiracy theories, as we say in the show opening, disinformation, false news, what's his name sat there in front of Rand Paul, etc., and said there was no gain of function. There's absolutely gain of function.
Oh yeah.
So the Supreme Court is playing this really interesting game of what's what. Agent provocateurs, of course, deployment of individuals or groups to instigate unrest, provoke violence, often under false pretenses. Craig knows him too. I know a guy who knows a guy who said Antifa was wearing MAGA hats on January 6th. Like 100 to 120 of them. Yeah. That's what we're talking about here. Agent provocateurs. You go in and you stir shit up.
Well, that's the thing. It's like because just the same thing. It's like the videos. Everybody's seen the video. If this thing was exactly as they're describing, how does that account for the video when it shows the guy being arrested, being taken behind the doors, and then immediately having the handcuffs taken off and given fist bumps to the other, given to the other officers, and then walking off camera?
Yeah.
I'm like, if that's not right there, a staged, plan, something, like I said, that's the prime example of what this is. We don't know the specifics of these people, but it's just when you look at these things, you're like, that's right above us. This is the whole point.
Yeah.
It's to steer public opinion, steer policy, steer something towards the ultimate direction that you want it to go. And that's kind of what I was talking about, where like Russia doesn't care who's the president. They have an ultimate, like, which direction they want things to steer. But like I said, Trump was a whole different, it derailed the global elite plan because he wasn't supposed to be in there. And so they had to, as you could see, as soon as he was out, they got it right back on plan.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And there's a guy, I don't know if you all know the Sir No Face documentaries and all. I have really mixed feelings about them. But that guy's supposedly in touch with someone who said there are these global districts that are being plotted out. So a bipolar or multipolar global order, basically, right? Yeah. With Russia and China at the head, and apparently Trump, being Trump, said, oh, no, I got to be in charge of the biggest one, and that's why they undid him. So that's a thing out there. I don't know. Of course, Russia uses a lot of disinformation in their ploy for Crimea, Ukraine, all of that kind of stuff. Now, sometimes, Craig, I was thinking about this. Disinformation will backfire on you, because when Russia came out and said, look, there are neo-Nazi units in the Ukrainian army, everybody's like, oh, it's Russia. They just make a bunch of crap up.
Mhm.
No, there are indeed neo-Nazi units in the Ukrainian army. So this can be a boy who cried wolf kind of thing
And that's
sometimes.
yeah. Well, it's like the politics. Like a lot of people, like here in the U.S., they struggle to understand that the what the left and the right, the far left and the far right in Europe and stuff is completely different than here in the
Yeah,
U.S. because you have it's what we would call the neo-Nazis, the Nazi party. That is the far right over there because that's not they are the National Socialists.
right,
You basically go from either National Socialism to the middle ground, or you go to the socialism, communism side, and that's the range in the European politics. And so we're looking at it as like when we go from our left and right. No, it's completely different. I mean, this one. So yeah, there's neo Nazis, but it's not like Nazi Germany. Like not. It's just they are national. They're National Socialist. They're basically National Socialist Ukrainians. They're not
yeah,
Nazi 1940s Nazi Germany Nazis. And that's what
yeah,
I said. There's a distinction. I mean, it's still the same name, but people are like,
right,
yeah, Nazis. I'm like, yeah, there's a difference. They're not,
absolutely,
as far as I know, the Ukrainians aren't planning on marching anybody into gas chambers.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's I
exactly
said.
right.
So I mean, there's a huge,
Yeah,
distinction.
yep. And that's a really great point. And again, going back to Frank Jacobs, really, guys, find and check out on Rumble his latest discussion with Jean Nolan, Jean Nolan rather. But Craig. He talks about the progression of fascism.
Yeah.
Fascism from the Latin fascia to bind together.
Yep.
So it's an
Yeah.
ultra national, which sounds an awful lot like when Bush said either you're with us or you're against us.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
That was the time of patriotism, like put up or shut up, is basically ultra nationalism.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's just some people they take it to the way extreme.
Yeah.
And that's what. Yeah, King. Yeah, it's exactly it. It's just.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
they're light. They're not identical. They're light. They're on the cusp.
Right. And then, of course, the Skripal poisoning, and there's plenty of others, but in Russia, employed disinformation following the poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal in the UK, disseminating conspiracy theories and false explanations to deflect blame. And, Craig, this is Phil Schneider with the deep underground bases, Dulce base and all that, who somehow managed to wrap lengths of plastic tube around his neck to kill himself, or the guy who invented the hydro car who mysteriously died, or the 20 something out of the 60 Star Wars initiative scientists who wound up dead.
Yeah, somehow figure out a way to shoot themselves twice in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, no, I agree, Maria. That 1,000 points of light, speech was pretty telling.
I'm always a little sensitive about that because one of my plays is one of the 1,000 points of light.
Yeah,
but overall, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's he was one of those where it was him, and then really got into Obama, where they really they peeled back the secrecy part. I mean, they just came out and literally said the things that aren't said.
Yeah. Yeah. You know who was the master of that? And then I'll tell you who I think kind of followed up. Dick Cheney was the absolute master of that.
Oh yeah.
Cheney would
he was the puppet master.
Out, and catch government response. And who was their guy at the time? Karl Rove, like the master of data collection when it was index cards and punch cards and mailers. And Karl Rove is still around. He's
like a human computer. He had all his little
Yeah, and kind of knew about this stuff and how to do mailers and grassroots canvassing and just trotting stuff. I remember it was around 2005, and I was going, they're just saying it. And John Bolton was another one, right? When very controversial ambassador to the UN who would just call it. So, very interesting. And that's gotten to the point now where through the ritual, sort of the reptilian bloodline ritual stuff, so on and so forth, they have to make it public. They have to describe what they're going to do. So someone made a comment. You can read about Agenda 15. Obviously, you can read the SDGs, which I know you did a Three Beards on, right?
Yeah.
The Sustainable Development Goals. You could
Yep.
read about about Agenda 2030, all the WEF
How
stuff.
everything seems to be lining up for 2030.
Yeah.
It's
And they have the big where do they have it there in Switzerland? Davos.
Yep.
They have the big Davos in January. And then two, when the Federal Reserve gets together. Now, of course, it's just like Congress having public hearings and then having closed door hearings. We're not hearing everything. Like, we're not hearing the nitty gritty about how they're going to do it, but we are very much hearing what they're going to do.
yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, and then Maria, that is true. It's like I said, and that's kind of goes back to a little bit to what I was saying, where the whole plan of it is, as long as we're fighting each other, like I said, and that's the thing is everybody's like, I can't stand the other team, and that's what I said, and that's the whole. I mean, it was years ago. It was after the second term of Bush is when I left the teams.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last time I wore the team jersey. Now since then I've just been both sides equally suck, and so now I literally go for people who match my ideals, and so that's what But I don't strive for I don't play for a team anymore.
No, because America's being fire sailed by foreign agents who answer to global elite organizations. The WHO, the UN has been totally co-opted. The IMF and the World Bank have been horrible. They've shackled countries by giving them money and then owning all of their it's like hundreds of banana republics, dozens.
Oh yeah, they're because most places. I mean, you think about it, it's like if you're struggling, you can't feed yourself, you can't do this stuff, and somebody walks up and says, "I will pay for everything you need. I will fix your house. I'll get you a new car. You're going to get all this stuff." There is very few of you who would say no to that person. You'd be like, "Oh, thank God, that's a blessing I've been looking for." Well, the problem is just like the old thing, the Pied Piper is going to come back, and they're going to want payment.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're going to be like, they're going to call in, they're going to call in the favor, and you're not going to like the fact, and that's how you end up with how US has done it. Everybody's worried about China putting bases in Africa and stuff like that. It's like, what do you think we've been doing? We got bases there. It's just, that's what it is. It's like, through these things, you use this Kompromat, you use this Dezinformatsiya, you use this to get these leaders in these countries, you get them compromised. You get them, everybody's used them. The US uses it, CIA uses these techniques, very well. I mean, I know in 2009, MI5, put out a warning about Chinese honey traps, because I wouldn't be surprised if it was the happy ending parlors type thing, to where, once you get caught in that, then you basically, somebody's got a photo and I'm pretty sure Mrs. back there isn't going to want, and this might affect your reelection as a governor, and you start doing these things. So we're going to need you to kind of approve this, this farm that we want to put down here. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
And that's what these two programs do. And there's several countries that are masters at this technique.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So Kompromat, right? Compromising material. That's exactly that happy ending on film, and some other things that we'll talk about too. So, of course, now I want to keep bringing it closer and closer to us in real time and what the stakes are. Before I do that, Craig, though, you said, excuse me, sorry, folks.
No,
especially to radio listeners on Earth Radio in 3 weeks.
Yes.
On Wednesday nights.
I have one of those too.
I do apologize. Yeah, twins. So
Earth Radio powers unite.
Right. So when you said like the IMF, like, here are these things, here's a car, here's a house, I've been talking with several people about this the last couple of days, especially. High inflation, no one can afford a house. Cars are ridiculous. Now the EPA is passing new things where if you buy a new car now, might have to trade it in for a couple years for an EV, which is ridiculous because they've been proven to be just a disaster with the lithium and all, right? We have record debt in this country. Obama following the bank consolidation in 2008, which was another sort of less great reset or lesser great reset, allowed the banks to go. I was paying 9 to 11% interest rates. I have an almost 900 credit score. Most of my credit cards are 20%.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people are pushing 30%. That's usury. So when they introduced the digital feudalism, when they introduced the bank tokens, now that the CBD, C or whatever, central bank digital currency, that was a float out false flag. That was a red herring for everybody to go, oh no, we don't want that. And they were like, okay, well, we won't have that. And then everybody, myself included, went, isn't Congress heroes? They're watching out for us. But the banks will do it individually. They'll all, just like they issue a credit card.
And that's this right here. It's kind of like what you were just saying about the cars. If you think about it, they've been telling everybody the electric cars, all this stuff is to save the planet. This is the green, the green. Well, what we're finding out is, I mean, I could bring up pictures and show, you want to see the lithium leach fields.
Yeah.
You can look at all these, what's done to mine cobalt, to mine this stuff. They're absolutely destroying, entire areas, just to get these materials to make these cars. And then you can start seeing, like with the Agenda 2030, you can start seeing the end goal is it's going to lock you into regions to where you can't get out, because the grid can't support all these cars.
Right.
And so now Joey's going to have an electric car. Craig's going to have an electric car. Maria's going to have her, everybody's got to have these things. But the problem is you can't get more than 300 miles away without having to charge.
Yeah.
And if you can't get a charger, well, you can't leave. Well, now guess what? You've self-regulated and locked yourself into regions. Hunger Games.
That's right.
You've locked yourself into a region.
If you do leave your region, you're going to have all the right credentials, your social credit score card, your digital ID in order to access or not. So I want to go to my nephew's wedding and I'm doing a show like this with Craig every week. No, you can't access our electric charging stations where you're headed.
And
sorry.
This works perfectly because, as I said, everybody's buying into the thing that, oh, this is just harmless. No, it's to a T.
Right. So this comes to deep fake videos. It comes to AI generated content. Look at the big thing right now. And honestly, I don't care about the royal family, but I do care what the hell is going on with Kate Middleton. Because what the hell happened to Jamie Foxx? What the hell happened to Kanye or whatever he calls himself now? There's these weird radical things. People disappear. Suddenly they show up. They don't quite look like themselves. It's also effed up because we literally Craig, I'll tell you, I belong to some pirate groups and things like this. And they love to put up these AI generated pictures. And I'm having the hardest time discerning if it's real or if it's an AI generated thing. That's how sophisticated the AI is getting, right? So,
it's just you have to really start paying attention, because there's still, unfortunately, AI still has some tells. This, it's not related to the show or anything. If you look, a lot of people post the cabin photos, the images of the cabin with the rock and the fireplaces and stuff. Yeah. If you really want to tell, look at the chimney.
Yeah,
there'll be part of it won't be there. It'll be kind of it's like a little section of it faded off. It's kind of like the hands where you got the sixth finger. Yeah. On these photos, you can tell it's like all of a sudden the rocks are a little off and there's part of the chimney missing. And this thing of
so she might be gone. She might be dead, and her supposed lover, maybe she was pregnant. But like I said, I don't really care. It's the power of what they're doing. And so then there's a video recently of her with William, kind of, taken at a distance at a farmer's market. The girl doesn't look like her. If she's cool, put her on camera for 30 seconds and let her go, I'm cool, had some complications. So the whole thing's very weird. So they could be garbage conspiracies.
Yeah, and I think Joseph was kind of right about that. Yeah, that this also could be, this could be done because who doesn't like, everybody wants that TMZ distraction.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of this is.
Yeah. Yep.
And Michael,
And
yeah,
the
it's kind of those
right.
things. Yeah, it's like
I
it's what.
yeah. Go ahead.
No,
Go
I
ahead,
was just
bro.
saying, like what Michael said. It's like, yeah, it's one of those the garbage conspiracies. It's just, yeah, you get sucked into these things. It's just like, yeah, I mean, it's like the Kardashians of conspiracies right now with Kate
Yeah,
Middleton.
it's an interesting thing. But when her lover turns up dead, and supposedly William has this lover that they buried in, yeah, and I honestly don't care. I think the time for the monarchy has long since passed. I think most people in Britain, if there's anybody with us in the audience, I think would agree that maybe the time has come. Yeah, Joe, exactly. Talk about Craig things not lining up. Whoever did that family photo with Kate and the three kids was a real hatchet job.
Yeah, the hand was all
Yeah.
weird.
And amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I didn't know that you could put a photo out there and then people can access it and unlock the metadata, the record of all the changes to the photo. That was
Wow.
news to me.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
is.
that's how they did it. Yeah. So thank you. Welcome to all the new faces. This is very, very cool. I hope you'll come back. We do this every 2 weeks. In
Yes,
2
sir.
weeks, we're gonna unlock Vanguard and
BlackRock.
BlackRock. So it's all sort of
Well, and it ties in, and it's funny. We just talked about it, but if you actually think about it, we've been talking about 2030. BlackRock and stuff actually ties into the Agenda 2030.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's, like I said, it's one of those things when you start looking at these things actually, it's not even conspiracy. I mean, it's just flat out. You can go on the UN website right now and just get all the information about it.
Yep.
And it's, Klaus Schwab, he said, you will own nothing and you will be happy about it.
That's right. That's right. Now, one thing I have in my notes here that's important is if you layer all of this stuff just right, you get a plausible deniability because it insulates. You don't know where it originates from. Therefore, the originators are protected. And furthermore, the thing, folks, that you got to watch false flags and be very, very careful as they're testing these little grid outages. AT&T goes down, Facebook and Instagram go down, little power grids go down here and there. Suddenly a credit union, you can't access your cash for 3 or 4 days on the weekend. As they're trotting this out, look for a certain phrase. Agents of China, or Chinese agents, Iranian agents, because they can go in now because everything is digital and they can manipulate the metadata and make it look like it came from my house, Craig.
Yeah.
That I sent out a command from my laptop to bring down, the Ohio power grid. It's that dangerous. So watch for that phrase. That's a real important phrase, which I think, Craig, they danced around in Leave the World Behind, produced by the Obamas, right?
Which, kind of goes back to the beginning of the show, where it's just, he's actually one of the first presidents that really did not ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
I mean, Clinton's was around, but he still, to a point, stepped away from the actual being in front, like he's actually trying to do something. It's like the Obama's just, they have not seemed to steer away, which, like you said before, where the one, if I could be there talking into somebody's earpiece, and it makes you, that's one of those things. Yeah. So it's a refill time. I've just got coffee and a beverage.
Iced tea.
Yeah. It's
Brazilian mint iced tea. Let's see here. So the U.S. government leverages diplomatic channels to gather info on foreign officials. We know all of this, but think about, here's a reminder. That's why I want to say it. How about when the scandal broke that the NSA was wiretapping Angela Merkel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if that had anything to do with Five Eyes.
It could very well have.
You want to remind the audience,
we did a show on Five Eyes, but
if that was something that she ended up getting caught up in some, in something like that, and it got released, because obviously they're kind of associated with with the Eyes program, but they're not, they're not they're not the immediate five. I think they're in like the I think it's like 7 or 14. It's the extended one. They're like a minor partner.
Right.
And that's one of those where I wonder if Angela Merkel, something was going on and they got caught up and they got snagged in that. And it was one of these things, like maybe somebody was trying to get dirt on this for pressure.
Right. Well, look how key Germany is with Ukraine. So you got to have all the players in the right places,
Mhm.
right? Because
Yep.
of the pipelines and all that. And yeah, so we're definitely going to talk about if Obama is still in control of the White House. He is the only president, Craig, in recent history that remained in Washington, D.C. after his presidency.
Yeah,
Typically, they go home to wherever their libraries.
Yeah, they usually take off.
Yeah.
They're hanging
Yeah.
out. Hanging out
Yeah.
on a ranch, hanging out in some town home apartment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it's pretty interesting. Just when you get into these things, like when you start seeing the connections, like who they're trying to pull in, because you're behind you is Epstein.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why I chose that image, is because you can tell Epstein's thing, besides the fact that, the guy's pervert, like I said, we all that thing of it, he was absolutely genius in how he used that stuff to leverage the people that he wanted to leverage into positions. Because all these politicians, it doesn't matter what side of the party they're on, they were after his money, after his thing, his power. They're going to, you've seen it. Trump was at these parties. All these people, like I said, from either side, they were all at these parties, these cocktail parties. They were hanging out with these guys. They were getting his money. But the thing is, because even Robert F. Kennedy flew on Epstein's plane. He was with his family. So obviously him and the family weren't involved with, the Epstein Island stuff, but it's the same thing. When you have these things, because eventually it's like he brought these people in, you could see he was like a Leviathan. I mean, his tendrils touched everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a spider web. He was pulling everybody, and it's just one of those things a lot of times. And that's where the beauty of, hate to phrase it that way, but that's the beauty of this Kompromat and this is that if somebody is really good at it, you don't even realize that you've been that you've been sucked into the web.
Exactly.
And that's Epstein was that way. It's like you have a cocktail party, all of a sudden it's like you go here, and the next thing you know, you're like, I've been compromised. You got the photos, you're in the little black book, and next thing you know, it's like, hey, I need you to do a favor for me. And boom, the balls are rolling.
Yeah. I kind of imagine you spend the time at the island, you do all your stuff, you're Bill Clinton, and you dress up in the dress and all that. And then probably 3 to 4 days after you get home, you get a FedEx package with a CD or a DVD, now a thumb drive, and you pop it in the old computer, and it's a record of everything that you did that weekend, and then he owns you. But that all gets very complicated. I just want to go, before we go back to that, I just, in my notes here, remember that advertising, right? Advertising is the great Dezinformatsiya. Edward Bernays, who was Sigmund Freud's nephew, basically invented Madison Avenue marketing techniques. So that's where that's coming from. Dow and DuPont, better living through chemistry. My dad and my father-in-law dying of Agent Orange. Hey, guess what? If you put this shit on plants and they die, it probably ain't that great for human beings.
Oh, yeah.
That's like common sense doing chemistry, right? Don't pour hydrochloric acid on yourself if it burns hole in shit. Right?
Yeah.
So I went pretty quickly with that. How about tobacco in the 1950s and 60s with Rod Serling smoking, with doctors?
9 out of 10 doctors recommend, recommend Paul Balls as a premium.
I love them.
And you look at these things, you're like, yeah. I mean, if for anybody that doesn't believe it, I mean, propaganda, started that. Edward Bernays, he was the one that developed, because like right now, if I say, everybody right now, the classic American breakfast, what do you say?
Yeah.
Bacon, eggs, toast, orange juice, stuff like that. That was created by the egg industry.
That's right.
That was never at a traditional American breakfast. This was a propaganda thing. But now everybody, if you ask people, think of the ultimate breakfast. Everything. Denny's Grand Slam. What is it? Eggs, bacon, toast. You have all this stuff. That was generated by design to sell stuff. So it's, in a way, it's a disinformation, because you were led to believe that this is the traditional way that we're supposed to, you're supposed to have it, and you've grown up this way. It's not harmful. I mean, obviously you're not dying, it's not deadly because you're having eggs and toast, but you were manipulated.
Right.
But you didn't know it.
But it is delicious. So it is kind of a delicious manipulation. Big Pharma, Purdue, the opioid epidemic. Thank goodness that there are so many pieces, more and more are coming out, documentaries and films and limited run TV series that are very hard hitting. Tanya and I have a very, very close friend. Her daughter was 16 years old. Soccer star, A student, part-time job, big plans for school, had back surgery to create to correct curvature of her spine, wound up on opioids, became an addict, and by the time she was 21, she was found dead in a ditch 3 miles from my house, naked, killed.
I want to say it's Purdue. Was it Purdue,
Purdue
that was
Pharma? Yeah, Purdue
that made it.
Pharma.
They're the ones that created the pain chart.
Yeah.
So when everybody would go to the doctor, like, what's your level of pain? That was created by them to sell Oxy.
Exactly right.
And like, it's a lot of people. It's, once again, in everybody's mind, it's like the pain chart. You see it with the faces. Like I said, that was done simply to sell Oxy to get individualize the dose. I mean, there was a great show on that, by the way. That was.
Yes, there is, and there's
I can't remember the name of it. We watched it. Yeah.
There's a new movie that's on Netflix now called Pain Hustlers, and it was the cancer pain medicine, and that's where they would pay doctors cash to up prescribe, to up the dose, and that's all about exactly those pain charts. AI is creating completely false narratives but Epstein, absolutely the master of the techniques. Now, this is where Dezinformatsiya gets really crazy. And I've been trying to drive this home to everyone. You have people like Brett and Eric Weinstein out smacking down Epstein. Oh, I met him and he had a girl bouncing her boobs, and I never saw him do a financial deal, and he was full of crap. Look up Eric Weinstein, folks. He was the managing director for a decade for a company called the Thiel Institute. Peter Thiel. Palantir. Oh, what the hell's the Palantir? It's Sauron's looking glass eye. Here's what happened. At the time that Facebook came up, Google came up, Elon Musk came up, all these, Eric Schmidt, all of these guys came up. Congress said no to something called LifeLock. LifeLock was the weaponization of big data against citizens of the United States. And the Congress, just like with the digital bank currencies, said, oh, hell no, here. But then turned around and went, the CIA through In-Q-Tel, which is, how many people out there know that the CIA has a venture capital arm? Probably all drug money, Craig.
Oh, I'm
sure.
Venture
capital arm seeded all of these guys. So be careful when you watch the Weinsteins, because they're kind of bought and sold. Who are their overlords and Peter Thiel's overlords? Klaus Schwab and the WEF. Craig, I'm just going to say it. They're the Fourth Reich, man. Operation Paperclip seeded 3 generations of Nazi Reich ideology in the United States at the very highest levels, from aerospace, defense contracting, chemicals, you name it, right? We know this. There are whole books that have been written on it. We have 3 generations of that. And then look at Klaus Schwab. Enough said.
Yeah, there's definitely. Yeah, I would agree. I said I would agree that there's something more than just, we're an economic, think tank that's looking to, help humanity. It's like there's something else behind. There's a massive agenda that's not
Right.
You can kind of tell what it is, but it's not like literally, they don't literally speak it. They infer, talk about this, but you can kind of see that the movement, because they're not a charity organization in any way. I mean,
No, and be really careful. Another dude is Jesse Marcel, who got all this special access to David Grush. If you look at this young guy, he's a major investor in the Teal Institute. So it's all connected. So just be careful, guys. If someone comes up from nowhere and suddenly has 250,000 subscribers on their page and they're getting access to congressional hearings and really important people, look at their background. You know where you can find out about Jesse Marcel? On his LinkedIn page, where it says that he's involved with the Teal Institute. So definitely check out Whitney Webb. She's on top of all of this stuff because it's her full-time job. Last thing that I want to say, Craig, with all of this, and it drives me crazy. My new book on storytelling has 430 footnotes in and 15 pages of references, as my publisher, Ken Gusward, always reminds me. In 350 pages of book, because attribution is important. If you go out to Instagram, if you go out to TikTok and you watch reels, you don't know where the person was, you don't know when they said it, you don't know the context, you often don't know the question that they're answering. So people will send me reels and they'll go, look what's happening. And I'm like, do your research. That was 8 months ago. That was 3 years ago. So the lack of attribution timestamps is Dezinformatsiya. It is tying people all up into figuring out what's real and what isn't. Do you know that false information spreads on the internet 7 times faster than truthful information?
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, it's just, we can use this thing. It's like this show. We'll get 100, to 200 views. You'll have somebody that'll come on and they'll just spout something that is completely not true, and you'll have 10,000 live watchers, and you're like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
I mean, everything we're talking about is, you can find multiple references on any major publication.
Right. And then when that happens, then you have the Scopes and you have the AP, Veracity, the failed Truth Commission.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have everybody so befuddled, then you can bring your organizations in. And I think that's I skipped Yuval Harari. I want to do, Craig, depending on how things unfold in the next couple months.
Yeah,
right?
the truth committee would fall under.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah,
absolutely. Because anytime that these agenda-laden, bought and sold organizations have an opportunity, you know what? Every time you and I mention Bohemian Grove, even in passing, there's a Encyclopedia Britannica entry that comes up on the video on my YouTube. So, which is saying,
you're
don't
still
listen
getting
to
those,
these
huh?
guys. Yeah, anytime we mention, it's only Bohemian Grove, which is really, really interesting. I'm going to put up these as we go, but I want to do a show on Yuval Harari and transhumanism because it's freaking frightening. And also, too, what it really is about is science populism. We are going to tell you what the science is. We are going to tell you what climate change means. We are going to tell you what fossil. You know what? There was a book called Super Freakonomics and Freakonomics. It was written by 2 Chicago economists probably about 12 years ago. Do you know what the highest cause of greenhouse gases is in the world? It ain't cars. It's cow methane.
Yeah.
So now they want you to eat bugs and plastic and bullshit. But I really want to hammer over time, Craig, this science populism bull crap. Because I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is a science populist.
We talked a little bit about it on our side too in the show.
Oh, cool.
Because and that's why I said I'd like to get into it too, because it's one of those, it's the double-edged sword. Because when you integrate tech into yourself, think, you have this aspect of you're going to be able to help somebody with Parkinson's, somebody that's paralyzed. You're going to be able to help them walk. You're going to be able to help them do this thing. But the problem is you could be hacked. You could be controlled. So the same thing, if that device can be sent, now you could literally have no control. Somebody could be controlling you, doing your actions, but it's the same thing where it's just, so where that's, especially with this that's the part that's getting, as we're getting closer and closer to the singularity, where that's where this debate has to happen, because at some point we're going to be fully integrated into the system.
Mm-hmm.
And now, do we go Matrix, or do we go like Star Wars side where technology and everything works with us, and we live in harmony with this? Or is it going to, like you said, is it going to be the Matrix, to where we're doing this whole thing, but meanwhile we're swimming around in some pink goo, and we're actually, this is all simulation.
Yeah, I do think that they're overselling. I don't think that artificial intelligence is intelligent at all. I think that it's very, very powerful databases running algorithms through quantum computing is really what I think it is. So it's kind of a missell. I think we're a long way away from Turing test and singularity, but it is coming, and they are going to push other things like Neuralink and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, if you listen to Yuval Harari, it's absolutely, absolutely frightening what this guy says. I don't think he likes being a human being at all.
And just because, like, for people that talk about the singularity, it's like, to realize how far we've come. Does anybody, like in the chat right now, does anybody know when the first iPhone was released? This blows my mind when I think about this, because think about how powerful phones are and stuff right now in our life. When was the first phone released?
The first iPhone, maybe around 92, 93?
2007.
What?
The first official,
only been around for 17 years?
Yep. The first iPhone, like I said, June 29th, 2007. That's the first generation.
Wow.
So we are only, like I said, so when you're like, just, that's the thing. It's like we're not that far from when iPhone was, that was revolutionary. We went from just like your really basic phone to where we had the smartphone. Look how far we've come since 2007.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking 17 years. In 17 years' time, we've gone from this basic phone, which could do basic, at that time was just mind blowing, but to where now I think our TV remotes are, probably have more capability now than that first iPhone did.
Yeah.
It is, and that's the, and that's one of those things where it's really, really crazy.
Yeah.
And that's
interesting. Joe says there are now 2 mobile phones for every person on the planet.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you think about like all the tech. I mean, most, like, even I have one for work and I have one for, things. So I have 2 phones with me at all time too. So yeah, but it's one of those, this definitely, I could see that. I think the transhumanism thing would be a really fun topic to talk about, because that's one of those things, especially like for the audience to think about, is where do you draw the line? I mean, it's like, where do you feel like it's going too far? Because I mean, think about it. How cool would that be if you're just like, I'm trying to remember that. Wait a minute. You got the information right at the top of your, boom, you have it right there. But then where does it affect the creativity side? Where does the Joey Medea, the writer, where does his creativity begin and end when it comes to he's fully integrated into the system?
Right.
Was that really him that created it, or was it his neural implant that he put in?
Yeah.
And so, that's
and the problem with that is, if it's getting in, they're taking out and they're putting in. Just like I talk about, I don't know, a hamburger with my son in passing. I'm making burgers for dinner tonight, and suddenly McDonald's ads are popping up on every single one of my.
It's listening by all.
So so that's that. So I'm just going to put up these last things. Thank you all, 3 beardos who joined. I hope you'll come back in 2 weeks. We're going to do, so I don't know, Craig, we could do BlackRock and Vanguard, and then in
Mhm.
2 weeks after that, do Obama, and 2 weeks after that, do transhumanism.
Yeah, that would work.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So thank you all. We're going to let you go. A lot to think about here. We're going to put this up, but thank you. Hope to see you all again. Craig, your show, of course, is on
Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
right on. Always a good time.
Yes.
So,
So that's
so everybody have a good night. We'll see you again, and thank you
all right,
for coming.
everybody. Good night.
Number 33.
Yes.